on the kitchen counter. You remember doing it. Not a vague sense of maybe putting them there. Absolute certainty. You can picture the exact spot, right next to the coffee maker, on the left side. You set them down deliberately because you were thinking about something else and you made a mental note. Keys, counter, left side. You walk into the next room for 30 seconds. Literally 30 seconds. You come back to grab them. They're gone. You live alone. Nobody came in. The door was locked the whole time. There's no rational explanation for where they went, so you search. You check your pockets even though you know they're not there. You check the counter again, moving everything aside. You check the floor, thinking maybe they fell. You check the car, the bathroom, the bedroom, everywhere that makes even remote logical sense. 10 minutes of searching, nothing. And then, 2 hours later, you find them. In the bathroom. On a shelf above the toilet. A shelf you never use. A shelf you have to stand on your toes to reach. In a location so bizarre, so impossible, that there is no conceivable scenario where you would have put them there. And when you tell someone about this, they give you the same response everyone gives. You probably just forgot. You were distracted. You put them there without thinking. But you didn't. You weren't distracted. You remember exactly, precisely, with complete clarity where you put those keys. And the suggestion that you somehow sleepwalked them to a bathroom shelf in the 30 seconds between putting them down and looking for them is more absurd than any other explanation. Yet that's what people expect you to believe. That your memory is faulty, that you're getting forgetful, that you need to pay better attention. But here's what nobody tells you. This experience is not rare. It's not a sign of declining mental function. It's not evidence that you're scatterbrained or losing your grip on reality. Studies on object permanence and spatial memory show that the vast majority of people, over 70%, report experiencing inexplicable object displacement at least once per month. Objects that they are absolutely certain they placed in location A, appearing in location B, with no logical pathway between the two. And the kicker is that this phenomenon increases in frequency for people who live alone, for people going through major life transitions, and for people in periods of high stress or rapid personal growth. This isn't a memory problem. This is something else entirely. And the reason it keeps happening, the reason objects keep moving when nobody's home, has nothing to do with your brain and everything to do with the nature of reality itself. Because what you're experiencing isn't forgetfulness. It's evidence. Physical, tangible evidence that you're not living in one fixed, solid, unchanging reality. You're navigating between slightly different versions of reality. And sometimes, when you shift from one version to another, the objects you interact with don't make the jump cleanly. They displace. And that displacement is the glitch that proves the shift happened. Let me be very specific about what qualifies as genuine timeline shift evidence versus normal misplacing. Because there is a difference, and understanding that difference is crucial. Normal misplacing happens when you're distracted, multitasking, on autopilot. You put your phone down while talking to someone, you're not paying attention, and later you can't remember where you left it. That's normal. Your brain wasn't encoding the memory properly because you weren't present. But timeline shift displacement has 3 very specific criteria that separate it from ordinary forgetfulness. First criterion: absolute certainty. You are not vaguely pretty sure where you put the object. You are certain. You remember the action of placing it. You can visualize the location. You were present and aware when you did it. There's no question in your mind about where it should be. This level of certainty is important because it means your brain did encode the memory. The information is there. This isn't a retrieval problem. Second criterion: impossible location. The object doesn't just turn up somewhere unexpected. It turns up somewhere that makes no logical sense. Somewhere that would require deliberate action to place it. Somewhere you would never put it under any normal circumstances. Your keys in a bathroom shelf you can barely reach. Your wallet inside a closed drawer you didn't open. Your phone in a coat pocket of a coat you didn't wear. The location itself is evidence that physical displacement by normal means didn't occur. Third criterion: no logical explanation. You've ruled out all the rational possibilities. Nobody else was there. You didn't have a blackout or missing time. You weren't intoxicated or impaired. The time frame was too short for you to have moved it and forgotten. There is no scenario that accounts for how the object got from where you put it to where you found it. And when all logical explanations fail, you're left with something that shouldn't be possible. And that's when you know you're looking at something quantum. This is not a memory problem. This is a physics problem. And the physics is quantum. What you're experiencing has a name in scientific literature: quantum object displacement. And while mainstream science hasn't fully acknowledged the mechanism yet, the evidence is mounting. Because the behavior of objects at the quantum level, where nothing has a fixed position until it's observed, doesn't stop being true just because an object is big enough to see with your naked eye. The rules are the same, the scale is different, but the principle holds. Your keys, your phone, your wallet, these aren't just physical objects existing in one definite location. At the quantum level, at the level where reality actually operates, they're probability clouds. Waves of potential positions that collapse into one specific location when you observe them. And most of the time, when you put an object down and walk away and come back, it collapses back to the same position because nothing in your frequency changed. The observation you make when you return matches the observation you made when you left. So the object stabilizes in the same location. But sometimes, in the minutes or hours between putting the object down and looking for it again, something in you shifts. You make a decision that changes your trajectory. You have an emotional spike that alters your frequency. You have a realization that expands your consciousness. And when you come back to look for the object, you're not quite the same observer you were when you placed it. Your frequency is different. And the object responding to your new frequency collapses into a position that corresponds to this version of you, not the version that put it on the counter, the version that's looking for it now. And because your consciousness carries memory across these shifts, because you remember where the old you put the object, you experience the displacement as impossible, as a glitch, as evidence that something is very wrong. But nothing is wrong. Something is very right. You're getting physical proof, tangible evidence that you're not locked into one fixed timeline, that reality is responsive to your state of being, that when you change, reality changes with you. And sometimes, the only evidence of that change is an object that moved when nobody was home. This is why it happens. This is what's actually occurring when your keys disappear and reappear in impossible locations. You didn't lose your mind. You didn't forget. You shifted timelines. And the object is showing you the seam between where you were and where you are now. And once you understand that, once you recognize what you're actually looking at, everything changes. Because you're not a victim of a faulty memory. You're a quantum being navigating a quantum reality. And the objects moving around you, they're not a problem. They're proof. Let me explain the actual physics of why objects can move when nobody's home. And I'm going to keep this accessible because the scientists deliberately overcomplicate it. But the core principle is simple, elegant, and provable. What you're experiencing isn't supernatural. It's not paranormal. It's not magic. It's quantum mechanics, operating at a scale you were told it doesn't apply to. But it does. And once you understand how, the impossible becomes inevitable. Here's what you were taught in school. Objects are solid, physical things that exist in one specific location at one specific time. A chair is in the corner. Your keys are on the counter. The Wooly world is fixed, measurable, predictable. That's classical physics. That's the Newtonian worldview that dominated science for 300 years. And it's wrong. Not completely wrong. It's a useful approximation for everyday life. But it's incomplete. Because it ignores what actually happens at the fundamental level of reality. And at the fundamental level, nothing is solid, nothing is fixed, and nothing exists in one definite location until someone observes it. Quantum mechanics proved this over a century ago. At the subatomic level, particles don't have definite positions. They exist in what's called superposition, multiple potential positions simultaneously. An electron isn't here or there. It's here and there and everywhere it could possibly be all at once until the moment you measure it. And the act of measurement, the act of observation, is what forces the particle to choose one position and collapse into it. Before observation, wave of possibilities. After observation, single, definite state. This is the observer effect. And it's not controversial. It's established physics. It's been tested and verified thousands of times. What is controversial, what mainstream science resists acknowledging, is that this doesn't stop being true when you zoom out from particles to objects. The chair in the corner, the keys on the counter, these are made of particles, trillions of them. And each of those particles is still operating under quantum rules. The chair still exists in superposition until it's observed. The keys still exist as a probability wave until someone looks at them. But I can see the chair, you're thinking. It's clearly in one place. Yes, because you're observing it. Your consciousness is collapsing its wave function constantly, forcing it to maintain one definite position. And not just your consciousness, everyone else's consciousness. The ambient electromagnetic field, the environment itself. For large objects in normal circumstances, there are so many factors continuously observing and interacting with them that they remain locked in one stable position. The superposition collapses so consistently, so rapidly, that the object appears solid and fixed. But here's where it gets interesting. When you put your keys on the counter and walk away, you remove your conscious observation. And if you're alone in the house, there's no other human consciousness observing them either. The keys don't have enough environmental interaction to keep them completely locked in position. They enter a subtle state of superposition, not enough to make them visibly blurry or unstable. The decoherence from air molecules and light keeps them mostly classical, but enough that their position becomes slightly probabilistic rather than absolutely fixed. Now, in the vast majority of cases, when you come back, the keys collapse back to the position where you left them, because you're the same observer returning with the same frequency, expecting them to be where you put them, and your observation matches the previous state. The probability wave collapses to the highest probability position, which is where you placed them, and everything seems normal. The keys stayed put. Reality remained stable. But in rare moments, something different happens. Between the time you put the keys down and the time you come back to get them, your frequency shifts. You make a phone call that changes your emotional state. You have a realization that alters your perspective. You make a decision that fundamentally changes your trajectory. And these aren't small surface-level changes. These are frequency shifts at the level of your electromagnetic signature, at the level of your quantum state as an observer. And when you return to get the keys, you're not quite the same observer who placed them. Your frequency is different. You're vibrating at a new level. And when your consciousness attempts to collapse the keys probability wave, it doesn't collapse to the position that matches the old you. It collapses to the position that matches the new you. And in this timeline, in this configuration of reality that corresponds to your new frequency, you didn't put the keys on the counter. You put them on the bathroom shelf, or in your jacket pocket, or wherever they turn up. But here's the crucial part. Your memory hasn't shifted. Your consciousness carries the memory of putting the keys on the counter because you did put them there, in the timeline you were in when you placed them. But you're not in that timeline anymore. You shifted, and the keys shifted with you, collapsing into the position they occupy in this new configuration. And the mismatch between your memory and the current reality is the glitch, the evidence, the proof that the shift occurred. This is why the object always turns up somewhere you would have put it, just not somewhere you remember putting it. Because in every timeline, you still interact with your keys. You still place them somewhere. But the specific location varies slightly between configurations. And when you shift timelines, the object's position updates to match the new configuration. But your memory doesn't. You remember timeline A. You're experiencing timeline B. And the object is proof that these are not the same. And this is why it happens more when you're alone. When multiple observers are present, their collective observation creates what's called quantum consensus. Reality stabilizes around the configuration that the majority of observers agree on. Your frequency shift might move you slightly, but if 3 other people in the room are still observing the keys on the counter, the keys stay on the counter. Their observation outvotes yours. Consensus wins. But when you're alone, you're the only observer. There's no consensus to override your individual frequency. Your quantum state has complete authority over what collapses and how. And when you shift, reality shifts with you. There's no democratic vote. There's just you. And the objects in your immediate environment respond to your frequency alone. This is why people who live alone experience object displacement far more frequently than people who live with others. It's not that they're more forgetful. It's that their reality is more fluid, less stabilized by collective observation, more responsive to individual frequency changes. Scientists have run experiments that hint at this. The delayed choice quantum eraser experiments show that observation can affect the past behavior of particles. The double-slit experiment proves that particles behave differently when observed versus unobserved. The observer effect is real, measurable, and consistent. What science hasn't done yet is scale these principles up to everyday objects and everyday experience. But the mechanism is there. The physics supports it, and your lived experience confirms it. Every time your keys move when nobody's home, you're not experiencing a failure of memory or a lapse in attention. You're experiencing quantum mechanics in action. You're watching the observer effect play out at human scale. You're getting tangible proof that your consciousness doesn't just witness reality. It actively collapses it into being moment by moment. And when your consciousness shifts, when your frequency changes, reality reorganizes to match. The object didn't move. You shifted timelines. And in this timeline, the object was always where you found it. Your memory of it being elsewhere is evidence that you came from somewhere else. This is the physics behind the impossible. This is why objects keep moving when nobody's home. Not because something is wrong with you. Because something is extraordinarily right about the way reality actually works. You're not solid. Reality is not solid. And the sooner you accept that, the sooner you can stop being confused by the glitches and start recognizing them for what they are. Evidence that you're a quantum being navigating a quantum reality. And every displaced object is a gift. Proof that you're not stuck. Proof that reality responds to you. Proof that when you change, everything changes, including where your keys decide to be. Not all object displacement is the same. There are 4 distinct patterns, and recognizing which type you're experiencing tells you something specific about the nature of the shift that just occurred. Understanding these patterns is how you distinguish genuine timeline shift evidence from normal everyday forgetfulness. Type 1. The instant vanish. This is the most dramatic and the rarest. You place an object down, you turn around for literally 5 seconds, you turn back and it's gone. Not misplaced. Gone. You search immediately. It's nowhere. And then it reappears hours later in a location that's impossible. This type happens when your frequency shift is sudden and massive. A shocking phone call. A split-second decision that changes everything. A moment of profound realization. The shift is so abrupt that the timeline jump is nearly instantaneous, and the object displacement is immediate and obvious. Type 2. The impossible location. The object reappears somewhere that would require deliberate physical action you didn't take. Inside a closed drawer you never opened, in a room you didn't enter, in a pocket of clothing you didn't wear. On a high shelf, you'd need a ladder to reach. The location itself is proof that normal physical displacement didn't occur. This type indicates a clean timeline shift where the new configuration has a completely different sequence of events than the old one. You didn't put it there in this timeline either. The version of you in this timeline did, but you're carrying memory from a different branch. Type 3. The duplicate state. This is rare but incredibly revealing. You find the object in the wrong location, but you also find evidence of it in the right location. An impression where it was. A mark it left behind. Something that proves it was on the counter even though it's now in the bathroom. This happens when timelines haven't fully separated yet. You're caught between configurations. The object exists in a superposition of sorts, with residual evidence in both positions because the shift isn't complete. This is temporary and usually resolves within hours. Type 4. The witnessed impossibility. Someone else was present when you placed the object. They saw you put it down. They confirm the location, and then it vanishes for both of you. When it reappears, you've both witnessed something that shouldn't be possible. This indicates a shared timeline shift. Both observers move together, which is rarer, but happens when two people are deeply entangled. Partners, close friends, people who spend significant time together and have synchronized frequencies. Each pattern tells you something different about the shift. Instant vanish, sudden frequency change, impossible location, clean timeline jump, duplicate state, transition in progress, witnessed impossibility, collective shift. And recognizing the pattern helps you understand what's happening in your consciousness when these events occur. There's a reason this happens more frequently when you're alone, and it has everything to do with something called the observer effect and how reality stabilizes through consensus observation. In quantum mechanics, the observer effect states that the act of observation affects what's being observed. A particle doesn't have a definite position until someone measures it. Before measurement, it exists in superposition, all possible positions at once. The observer's consciousness collapses that superposition into one definite state. This isn't mystical. It's measurable physics. And it doesn't stop applying just because the object is large enough to see. Now scale this up to everyday reality. When multiple people are observing the same space, the same objects, they create what's essentially a consensus reality. Your observation says the keys are on the counter. Your partner's observation agrees. Your roommate's observation confirms. Three consciousnesses collapsing the wave function in the same way. The keys lock into that position. Reality stabilizes around the agreement. And even if your individual frequency shifts, even if you personally move between timeline branches, the collective observation holds the object in place. Consensus overrides individual variation. But when you're alone, there is no consensus. There's only you. Your observation is the only force collapsing reality into definite form. There are no other consciousnesses to outvote you, to stabilize the configuration, to lock objects in place regardless of your personal frequency. When you shift, everything shifts with you. There's no democratic reality holding things steady. There's just your singular consciousness determining what's real and where things are. This is why object displacement is dramatically more common for people who live alone. It's not that they're more forgetful or scattered. It's that their personal reality is more fluid, less anchored by collective observation, more responsive to individual frequency changes. Every shift in their consciousness, every decision, every emotion, every realization, has immediate impact on physical reality because there's no consensus field dampening the effect. And this is why it happens more at night. During the day, even if you're physically alone, you're still loosely connected to the collective consciousness field. Other people are awake, active, broadcasting their observations. The global field of human consciousness is dense and active. But at night, especially late at night, that field thins. Fewer observers, less collective stabilization. Your individual consciousness has more room to move, more freedom to shift, and reality becomes more responsive to your personal frequency. If you live alone and experience object displacement constantly, way more than people around you seem to, write solo shifter in the comments. You're not losing your mind. You're living in a reality that's more fluid because there's no one else stabilizing it. Your consciousness has more power when it's the only observer, and that power manifests as objects moving, disappearing, reappearing in impossible locations. It's not a bug, it's a feature. You're experiencing quantum mechanics at human scale because you're the only consciousness in your immediate environment. And that makes you a perfect laboratory for observing how consciousness creates reality. So what actually triggers these timeline shifts? What causes your frequency to change so dramatically that objects start displacing? There are 5 specific triggers, and once you learn to recognize them, you'll start noticing a clear pattern between these moments and the object displacements that follow. Trigger 1. Major decision. You just made a choice that alters the trajectory of your life. Accepting a job offer, ending a relationship, committing to something you've been avoiding. The moment you decide, your frequency shifts instantly. You're no longer the person who was weighing options. You're the person who chose. And that version of you exists in a slightly different timeline. Objects you placed before the decision can reappear in locations that correspond to after the decision, because the you who's looking for them isn't the same you who put them down. Trigger 2. Emotional spike. Intense anger. Sudden joy. Overwhelming fear. Deep grief. Emotion isn't just feeling, it's frequency. A massive emotional spike shifts your electromagnetic signature immediately. And when your frequency changes that fast, reality reorganizes around you. The object you placed while calm might displace when you're searching for it while anxious, because those are two different frequency states, accessing two different timeline configurations. Trigger 3. Awareness breakthrough. You had an insight, a realization, an aha moment that changed how you see something fundamental. When consciousness expands, frequency shifts. You're literally operating at a different level of awareness than you were 10 minutes ago. And the object you placed at the old level of awareness might not be where you left it when you return at the new level, because those are two different observers collapsing two different realities. Trigger 4. Sleep-wake transition. You placed an object before going to sleep. You wake up. You look for it. It's not where you left it. During sleep, your consciousness detaches from waking reality.